Hey guys, and welcome back to my video series about the HP Envy13T late 2019 edition. This is part 2, and in this part I explore the performance of more games played on this laptop. The games tested in this video will be Wolfenstein 2, Far Cry's 3 and 5, Cities Skylines, CSGO, and Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. As you can see, this laptop is very thin and light, easy to carry around with you wherever you go. It's got a very modern design. Here I've pulled up CPU-Z so you can see the details of the processor. It's the i7-10510U. You can pause the video if you want to see specific details about this specific processor. And also I pulled up a hardware monitor here so you could see information about the temperatures and the power that it's using, as well as the clock speeds. And the last thing is GPU-Z, which will have information about the GPUs. This one actually has dual graphics setup because it has the integrated Intel graphics here, as you can see on this page, and then in the other page it has the Nvidia GeForce MX250 graphics. Again, you can just pause this if you want to take a look at all the specs there. You can adjust the screen brightness on the keyboard from low to very bright. I found this display to be on the bright side of most laptops I've seen. I have no issues with the brightness of the display. It also comes with a backlit keyboard with 3 settings: off, low, and high. See, that's the highest setting, followed by the low setting, and then off. So it's got 3 different settings for that. Now into the games. First game is Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus. You see I have it set to low, and I find that a lot of the modern games, even if you set them to low, they still have pretty good graphics. So that's what you want to do with this laptop, because it doesn't have a very powerful GPU. So you want to set the graphics to low, and you'll still get decent graphics and decent performance. As you can see up in the upper left-hand side of the screen, we're getting right around 30 frames per second average in Wolfenstein 2, which is not a bad performance. 30 frames is about the least you want to go, in my opinion, for fast-moving games. Ideally, you'd want 60, but in a thin and light package like this, you're not going to get that type of performance. So 30 is just fine for most types of gaming. Just show you a little bit of the gameplay here.
Next stop, Lakeview District. Air feels heavy. Brutal heat. Like Texas in August.
Look for Papa Joe's All-American Diner. Meet Super Special inside the restaurant. Do not break cover.
As you can see, the game is perfectly playable. There's no noticeable stuttering.
Folks. Just strolling around with my nuke.
So if you're looking for a thin and light laptop you can just take on the go with you and do a little bit of light gaming, this is a great option. Now, one thing I did not do is I'm not recording this game from inside the computer, because that would impact performance. So that's why I'm doing it from externally. But I do have Fraps running in the background to display the frames per second in the upper left.
Practice your German, dear. You'll need it. Was denn Füße in?
Das der Führer ist ein großer, alter Mann. will it be?
I want the
So
chili.
that close,
Oh,
unfortunately.
it's to go. We'll be quick.
Okay, the next game we're going to look at is Far Cry 3. This is an older game. However, it still has really good graphics for being an older game. So we've got it set to the display resolution of 1920 by 1080. And we'll turn all the settings up to high or ultra. And we'll see how this performs. The reason I went with ultra settings on this game is because it's an older game, so it should be able to run a little bit better. And as you can see, we are still getting about 30 frames per second, so that's pretty decent.
They threw me in a stinking cell. I won't buy. At least
Okay, just for fun, let's go back into the settings and turn everything down to medium and see what kind of frame rates we get there.
You want a taste?
As you can see, we pretty much doubled our frame rate by taking everything down to medium. We've got between 60 and 70 frames per second now, so it's running very smooth. And you can also see that we really haven't lost that much visual quality, so you can still run these games, these newer games, in low without really sacrificing that much, especially if you're on the road or you don't have a full spec PC with you. So as you can see, this computer has no problems at all playing these slightly older games like Far Cry 3. One thing I will mention though is that in order to get the best performance, you do have to have the laptop plugged in. If you're running on battery power, you can expect to lose some frames. Next up is Far Cry 5. This is going to be a little bit more challenging. And in this game at first I just ran the benchmark. So here's the benchmark run on high settings. You can see that it's not doing too great. Again, this is at 1080p, and this run ends up averaging 17 frames per second. So not really playable in my book. You need something like 30 frames per second in a shooter at least to get decent performance. So that run was averaging 17 frames per second. The next time we're going to rerun this in low settings and see how much better it gets. And this run was not really that much better. ended up coming out to 21 frames per second average, so still not that playable. Again, this is just the benchmark, which has a lot of visual effects on it, so your real in-game performance may be better than this in a lot of cases. This is just the benchmark. Again, even in low settings, the graphics still look just fine, so you can run these games in low and still have a pretty enjoyable experience. So now we're not in the benchmark. Now I'm just going through the level just on my own and just seeing how it runs. And you can see we're getting a little bit better frames just in our own free world here. It's doing in the low 20s, which is not really that playable, but if you want to play it on the road, you get the itch to play it, and you don't have a high-spec PC, it'll do, but it's not going to be any sort of competition level gaming, that's for sure. You can see even with the fairly low frame rate, the explosion animations and everything is running fairly smoothly. There's no jitters, it's just a low frame rate, but it's running pretty smoothly for the most part, so I'm pretty happy with this performance. Next up we have City Skylines. This game I didn't have any preloads in it, so this is not a very good test, but you can see I've got the resolution set to 1080p and I've got the settings set to high for the most part on the graphics. Again, I don't have any cities loaded here, so this is not a very good representation, but you can see that we are getting decent playable frame rates here. The next game is CSGO. This is an old game that is still very popular. I've got everything set to high, and you can see this game is really pretty good, probably because it's an old game, but it has really good performance. You can see we're up in the 70s. Here's a little side view for something different, and you notice here I unplugged the laptop to show you the performance once you're running on battery power. As you can see, it still has really good playable frame rates even on battery power. Next up is Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. The remake of this game just came out a few months ago, as they revamped the visuals and a lot of other things. I'm not really sure all what they did. But here I'm running the in-game benchmark. So here I've got everything set to low, and we'll try the benchmark. Looks like we're up in the 40s. It's pretty good, it's nice and smooth. Okay, now I'm back in the settings. I'm going to change everything to Ultra, and we'll try the benchmark again. And for some reason this game doesn't make that much of a difference. Even on Ultra, we're still getting into the 40s. So you can easily run this game on Ultra. And here I'm going to go ahead and unplug the laptop again. You notice this game does actually have a little bit of a performance decrease on battery power. So now we're into the mid 30s instead of the 40s, which is still perfectly playable in my opinion. There, we plugged it back in, and you'll notice instantly now we're back up into the 40s again. So the power management software is working to keep the games playable, whether or not it's on battery power or wall power. Okay guys, that's all the time we have for this video. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Like my videos if you like it, or subscribe if you feel like you really want to. And I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day.